Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us now, our friend who used to be a regular on the show. It's Karine Jean-Pierre. You know her as former White House press secretary, the author of the book, brand new book, Independent, A Look Inside a Broken White House, Outside the Party Lines. And she's always waging the good fight. So Karine, nice to see you, my friend. It's been a long time. I haven't seen you
Hi,
since going to the
Dean.
White House.
It's
And
been
then
a long
in the
time.
White House.
Yeah, last time I saw you was in my office, the White House press secretary's office. Well, not my office, but the office that I occupied at the time, the White House press secretary's office.
That was
It's
exciting.
good
That
to
was a lot
see
of
you.
fun. Good to see you, my
That
friend.
was a lot of fun.
Hopefully you'll come back and be a regular bi-weekly get. Now, it used to be like every other week you were on and we did different
I
things.
would. I remember.
So it
It
was a
was,
lot of fun.
and you know what? It was his first term, and it was, we were out there
Right.
the first term
Trump's
of
first.
the Trump administration. Yeah.
And now we're in the second one. So look, last night was election night. Democrats
Yeah.
overperformed in ways that kind of stunned me. I just want to get your reaction as someone who's seen politics up close.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't surprised. I mean, I was on a show and they asked me to predict, and I was like, Mamdani's going to win. He's going to win overwhelmingly because he has done such a phenomenal job reaching out to voters and doing it differently, or doing it in a way that we hadn't seen in a long time. Grassroots organizing, getting young people inspired and excited, and bringing a message that resonated with people. And I did think in New Jersey, Virginia, and California, those were going to be wins for Democrats, because I think in the moment that we're in, people are disgusted and people are afraid and people are speaking out. So it's not unusual to see these wins. Obviously, New Jersey has always historically been very difficult for us. So that was a massive win, especially in an off-year election, a governor's race. And seeing it's just been across the country, right? You have Black women making history, women making history. And so I think it sends a very loud message. I think it should send to the Democratic leadership that diversity is important, different voices are important, and we can have a big tent party. They can have a big tent party, and that was one of the things that I was seeing very early on in this year in January, that was kind of slipping away from us. And what I mean by that is I was hearing from certain leadership about poll tested lines, about who should we protect, and who should we be talking about, and who should be included. And I think that was a huge problem. There was really not much of a defense against DEI, and look what we're seeing. Look what we're seeing. And so I think this is a good lesson and a good message, because you can be an independent thinker. You can have different voices within the party. You can have someone who's a socialist, and you can have someone who is a CIA agent, still be part of the Democratic Party, and everybody's voices is included. And I hope they see this as a lesson, because it is a big win. It is a huge win. And this goes to the people. I think this is the people who are exercising their civic duty and saying no to the madness that we're seeing in Washington, D.C.
And I know you've had, as you talk about in your book, some issues with the Democratic Party. And Hakeem Jeffries, though, posted the Democratic Party is back. So are we back? Is this it? Is everything's fixed?
Look, there's a lot more. I think President Barack Obama's statement was probably a little bit more real, which is like, this is what happens when we all come together. And this is what we can get done when we all come together. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, his statement. And what I love that he said is there's a lot more work to do. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but it doesn't end here. If anything, this is like the beginning. And there's so much more work that needs to be done, right? There's the midterm elections a year from now, and so much more work needs to be done. From like right now in this moment, there's work that needs to be done. I mean, we're talking about, a president who wants to steal the 2026 midterm and is flaunting and was flaunting a third term, which is not constitutional, but that's what he's flaunting. So there's a lot to go. There's a lot more work to be done. And I hope it's not just, yes, celebrate for the moment, but be ready for the work ahead.
The opening line of your book is that our democracy is in the middle of a five-alarm fire, which I think most people agree. I think that was what the frustration of some of the Democratic base and listeners to my show is that there are many Democratic office holders in Congress who are not articulating that or didn't have they weren't showing us the passion of that. And that was a big frustration.
And that was a huge, so I wasn't going to write this book. This book was going to be very, very different. And when I came out of the administration, I just was seeing what was happening and hearing from people. People were telling me, why are the party not fighting? They knew we lost in November. Why are they not showing any teeth? What's happening? Why are they giving up their leverage in rubber stamping these these overwhelmingly not qualified appointees? They gave up their leverage by saying, okay, yes, we're going to move with your appointees, because they were behaving as if it was politics as usual. Mm-hmm. And that is a problem that Democrats have. Trust me, I've been in it. I've been in it for 20 years. So I understand. I was part of it. I get it. I'm not saying this without full of awareness of my part in this. But the business as usual, politics as usual needed to end. And so that was one of the things that I saw very early on and heard from many. And you see it in the polling of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is not popular. They're just not. They're not. So
and that hasn't changed.
And that hasn't changed. So this win is not about the party and the leadership. Mm-hmm. It's about the people, and the people stepping up and speaking out and saying, we do not want this.
It's many discussions we've had on my show, and even when I've gone on cable news and talk about, they'll say, well, there are these people who are fighters. And the problem is we can name the same 20 or 25 fighters, but there's 250 Democrats in the House and the Senate. That's the problem, and you still have someone talk about, like, let's find common ground. Now you're going to still say this right now. Please stop saying that. We don't want to, like, we want you to have the passion that we have because we have so much to lose.
Exactly. So, and listen to us and talk to us and hear us and speak to us in real speak, not poll tested speak. And that's what people want to hear. And I think that's why Mamdani was so successful. I keep bringing him up because he did something that we had not seen in a long time, and did it by participating in a primary process. And agree with him on politics or policies, just put that aside for a second. But he decided, I'm going to run for mayor. Nobody knows who I am. I have no name ID. I'm running against these two big Goliaths in this primary, but I'm going to do it in a way where I take it to the people, I talk to them, I listen to them, I inspire them. And the fact that in a ranked choice Democratic primary, young people came out, and he did it the right way. And then you have party leadership saying, no. we don't want him. And I'm like, that hurts us. That hurts us with young people in particular.
I could agree. I'm talking to Jean-Pierre about her new book, Independent, A Look Inside a Broken White House Outside the Party Lines. But I agree with you that the leadership doesn't always listen to the base. And one glaring example, you were in the White House. Almost 80% of Democrats wanted a ceasefire in Gaza. And the Biden administration was not articulating that or advocating for that. And I even had a meeting with Secretary Blinken and some others, and I was called in with some other Palestinian Americans about 6 months into the war, saying, look,
I remember this. Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't you? So that frustration that you just articulated, we had many of us to the Biden administration. And
trust me, I know, Dean. Trust me, I know. I felt it. I was the White House press secretary, and I'm very aware of that. And look, that is something that Blinken and foreign policy advisors to the president himself, Joe Biden, is going to have to speak to as to the decisions that were made. And they were difficult ones. It was not easy to watch and not easy to see. And it was devastating, obviously, to see what was happening in Gaza to the Palestinian people, what was happening in the Middle East more broadly, and just the war that was happening there. And, there is a U.S. policy that exists, that has been there for decades. And I think that I want people to understand that has been there for decades. And if folks want change, that's where the change has to go, to where the U.S. policy is. And And it was tough. It was, don't get me wrong. It was really tough. And as somebody who had to speak to the decisions that were being made, I was not part of it. I did not design, I did not make the decisions. It was tough. It was tough because that is, I would say that that is not what any of us wanted to see, is the killings of innocent people. And so I hope that they speak to it. I hope that this is something that they speak to. Joe Biden, the president, is writing his book right now.
Oh.
And my hope is that I can't imagine this is not something that he addresses in his book.
So from just to help us as activists, from
Yeah.
you were in the inside, we're on the outside. If in the future there's a Democratic administration and we're not happy with a policy, I think the base is overwhelmingly not happy with a certain policy, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you recommend for us? What do you recommend for activists to actually have an impact on the policy of that White House?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, speaking out, having those meetings, protesting, peaceful protesting, obviously are very critical and key. Here's what I tell young people that I meet up and we have these similar discussions. And I actually tell them, get involved in the process. Like, get involved.
Right.
If you want to focus on foreign policy, US policy, you know what? Study it, learn it. Go and work for the UN or the State Department, or a think tank. Like, actually dive into it and try to change policy. And it's not easy. I know what I'm saying is not easy. I know it's very difficult, but you also have to be involved in the process, in the political process, in the electoral process, and get elected and run for office. I believe that is so important, because at the end of the day, and this is the thing that I say to young people, is that when this is all over, because it will end at some point, the damage that has been made in the past 10 months alone has taken us back 60 years. I was saying 30, 40 years before, but it's actually 60 years. And we are going to have to rebuild the education department. We're going to have to rebuild that. There's so many agencies and so many things that we have to work on. And guess who's going to help us do that? Young people. So we actually need them to get involved so we can reimagine and rebuild, and at the same time hold powerful people accountable. Like, protesting is great. Obviously, I come from my career. My good part of my career comes from a protesting background. When you think about Move On and the work that we did, peacefully protesting is really critical. But we also need these talented, amazing people, young people, to get involved in the process. And that's been my message on how do we make change, because there's going to be a lot of work. We're going to literally have to build from the ground up. So get involved in that. Be part of that.
And you, if I remember correctly, you worked in New York City on the city council. You
Yeah,
worked
I worked for 2 city council members. Yeah.
right. So
Politics
you've
is
seen New
local.
York,
Politics
right?
is local.
You've seen New York politics. In looking to the eye to the future, I was looking at the exit polls for Zohran's race, and of people 18 to 44, he won 70% of 18 to 44. Of
That's insane.
18, it's insane. It's on there. He brought them all out.
Right, 2+ million people. 2+ million people came out. We haven't seen that since 1969. I grew up in
John
New York.
Lindsay, a million
I'm from
votes.
New York.
Right. So
Yeah.
but
And
my point is,
off-year election. That's the other thing. An off-year election, you
but let
don't
me get to
have the presidential election happening.
right. But you, again, you are both an outsider and insider. You were an activist on the outside, and then you were inside of the White House. What do we do? What do we see those Democrats in New York who are office holders who didn't endorse Zohran, and some actually endorsed Cuomo? Which is, I'm like, are you kidding me? Not endorsing Zohran to me was bad, but
I
the
mean,
ones who
look,
endorsed Cuomo, I'm like, horrible.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying before, right? I laid out what Zohran Mamdani, and I don't know him, I've not met him, but what he did and decided to do in this primary, did very successfully, engage and excited millions, obviously, of young people, got them out to come to a primary, and did it the right way. And you have leadership say, no, I mean, he was the nominee for the the Democratic nominee for the mayor's race. And they're saying, no, basically they're saying, voters are wrong. We don't
Right.
want him. And that is a problem. You're sending the wrong message to young people, in particular, who we need to engage in this moment. And I thought it was a mistake. I think it was a big mistake that leadership didn't get behind him. I thought it was a big mistake that they turned his back on him, because he did it the right way. He did
Yeah.
it the right way. And there's something to be learned by the way he campaigned. And now, look, he's going to govern, and we're going to, hopefully he'll have support to be able to govern. I think he's a very savvy, a very smart person, obviously. And I'm excited to see what his tenure is going to look like and what he's going to do. But I think it was a huge mistake. And that is one of the things I'm actually calling out in the book. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
leadership, Democratic leadership, we need you to do more.
You talk about in the book, the Democratic Party has questions to ask itself.
Yeah.
And I mean, is there a set of questions? Or is it an overarching thing? Is it about listening to the base? Because I really think the Republican leaders fear their base. Democratic leaders, some listen to us, but some just tolerate us or ignore us. I mean, that's what I
Yeah.
feel like.
I mean, look, as somebody who was obviously um, in the party for a long time, I think one of the things we've lost our way in is listening to the base, and we did not connect. I mean, I take responsibility. Our outcome in November 2024, I feel accountable for. All of us should feel accountable for losing that race, and I do. I feel like, okay, I look at myself and what did I do wrong in this as well? Because I was at the podium, right behind the lectern, and I was speaking on behalf of the president, who's the head of the Democratic Party. So, I mean, I'm not blind to this. I know exactly, what I'm saying and where I was a year ago, if you will. But I think we have, in examining and looking back, there they tend to see us, the base and Americans, and the folks who are obviously everyday people and hoping for us to lead in a way that is helping them, is that we were too elitist, right? There was, like, we were not speaking directly to them. We were not actually lifting up their issues and dealing with them or speaking to them. Because I have to say, one of the things about the Biden-Harris administration is we did get a lot done. We did. We did get a lot done. Made some historic, uh, made some historic movements, whether the economy,
Mhm.
climate change, you name it. We were able to do things that really matter to people, but we were not able to communicate that. It didn't connect. It didn't connect. And so I think there's some truth there. Like, we have to figure out, how do we speak to everyday Americans in the way that they feel us and they think that you're listening. And that's the number one. I feel like that's one of the
Hmm.
number one things that has been missing. And I do believe the Democratic Party needs to behave as an opposition party in this moment. They have to. They have to
Yeah.
take it and punch hard and have some teeth. And that's my other kind of advice. And another one would be, this is a Big Ten party, and you can't throw people under the bus. You can't throw queer people, LGBTQ people under the bus. You can't throw the Muslim community under the bus. You can't throw immigrants and migrants under the bus, because whatever you believe poll tests well. And that's what I was seeing in this year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, no. There are people who are afraid and scared. We're supposed to be there for everybody. And so I hope this outcome, looking across the board, the diversity of this party and the people sending a very loud message, I hope it's not just, oh, Democrats are back. I hope it is, we hear you, we
Mhm.
see you, and you know what? We're going to get to work.
And that's great. I couldn't agree with you more on that. When you write about the media and you had to deal with the media, and it's always, there's adversarial and there's working with people. But right now that you're out, when you look at corporate media now, has it changed, especially over the last year under Trump? And is it harder to trust and be trustworthy of a corporate media right now?
I think you said it, corporate media, right? I mean, there's a change in who owns the media, who gets to decide who speaks on behalf of these networks and what it looks like. I mean, it's pretty scary. It really is. Look, I've always said, and I want to be really clear about that, and it's in the book, the freedom of the press is critical and it's an important thing.
Mhm.
And because it's an exercise of our democracy when we allow that freedom of the press and the press to push back on powerful people and the back and forth. That was one of the things that was so critical and important in what was happening in the daily briefings. right? That was, and I always say this is not just televised in the country, but it's televised globally and sending message globally, right? To head to say to folks on who are obviously watching what US is doing, a message. And when you take that away, and I'm talking about the current administration, when you take that away and you make it so that the people in the room only report what you want them to report, and are not really holding you accountable, that becomes state TV. That becomes state TV. So I want to show that there is a respect that is owed and importance for our country to survive, to have the freedom of the press. And I do believe now, to your question about where we are with the media, I think there's a Trump standard. There's a Trump standard that he's just covered differently. And
Right.
it is insane. I mean, President Obama said it perfectly recently. He said, can you imagine if I did that? Can
Yep.
you imagine? And so there is a double standard there.
I agree. And very last question, quick thing, because we're friends. What's your fondest memory of working as White House press secretary? Like on a
Oh,
personal
that's so
level?
nice. My fondest memory was you, my friend, coming to visit me.
Ha! Very funny. Yeah, I did go to meet you, but I'm sure there's something fonder. It's got to be.
So my fondest memory, in all seriousness, my fondest memory, and I did enjoy our time when you came to the White House to interview me, is the first date dinner that we had at the White House, which was with France. And I got to bring my mom, who had never had been to the White House before, but had never been to a dinner because she came during the Obama Biden days. And she got to meet President Biden for the first time. And I had just I was like maybe 6 months into being White House press secretary. And so some of my colleagues were very kind, and they were saying, really nice things about me to my mom. So my mom was like super psyched and proud. And she got to meet the president, and he gave her a big hug. And at that night, she said to me, that was the best night of my life. And the fact that I've been able to do that for my immigrant mom, who was orphaned at a young age, doesn't have a high school degree, it was pretty amazing for me to have done that. And what I would say is 2 months, 3 months later, and I didn't get to see her that much. Then 2 months, 3 months later, she was diagnosed with colon cancer. And she fought that, she's still with us.
Good.
But that night was the last time, that I saw her as my mom, in a sense of she's changed. When you get sick, you're not the same person that you were before. And the next time I actually saw her, we were, banding together with her for her to fight colon cancer. And so that's why that memory is so clear to me, because it was really the last time I saw her as the woman that raised me.
I so appreciate you sharing that. And the book is great. Independent, a look inside a broken White House outside the party lines. Karine, we were so proud of you, still proud of you. Proud I see you up there. I'm like, I know her. That's Karine Jean-Pierre, my buddy. I look forward to chat. I hope in the future, when you have time after the book stuff, come back on the show. We'll just talk politics.
I would love
When you have a
to.
chance.
I would love
All right,
to.
thanks, my friend. Have a great
Thank
day.
you, Dean.